Did the mayor of Naples just give up and basically tell us that his people cannot be saved from a potential larger earthquake or a volcanic eruption? Very frustrating news from the mayor of Naples, but also from the INGV that is telling us about the potential of magma rising to the surface. So interesting video for you guys today. So Gaetano Manfredi, he's in his 60s. He's the mayor of Naples, and he has given an interview regarding the Brady seismic crisis, the land rise, the earthquakes, the volcanic risk, and the evictions of people from their homes after this strong 4.6 earthquake. They already have evicted in the Pozzuoli and western Naples area, Bagnoli, because the homes have been so damaged from these earthquakes. Like floors have collapsed, walls cracked. So it was really, really bad. 353 people were evicted for a total of 164 families. Some are hosted in hotels, some found independent accommodation. Now they just had to evacuate with the firemen. Another couple with a baby from a rental unit. You see the picture here behind me. And Gaetano Manfredi has basically said, and this is shocking to me, we cannot move thousands of people. What does he mean by that? We know well that the Campi Flegrei is a cyclical problem, that until this swarm is exhausted, we must continue to work together with the citizens to ensure that there is a calm, quiet, and vigilant management of this phenomenon, which is an ancient phenomenon. I have to stop here for a second. Seasoned scientists are saying it's an ancient phenomenon that comes and goes. But what these politicians and officials are trying to make people believe, that Brady seism has always been there at Campi Flegrei, that this is a constant thing. And that's not true. Brady seism occurred years before, but also after an eruption. And that can be decades. But there have been thousands of years, sometimes hundreds of years, of quiet phases at Campi Flegrei. So Brady seism, if it's there, it means something. But the scientists, and especially Giuseppe Di Natale, he works for the INGV, works in leading position, has said, yeah, this is what the press and the officials are always saying to kind of take out the danger. This is normal, it's always happening. And he said that again, but that's not what I'm concerned about. He said, obviously, because that risk has always been there, we cannot think of moving tens of thousands of people. So we must help people live safely. What? They should think about moving people away that live right on top of that volcano. And there have been talks last year that it was kind of like criminal, that it was even allowed for people to build there. Many have built illegally. So is he giving up on the fact to like stop giving out building permits, empty that area? Because we're not only talking about earthquakes. Every scientist that is seasoned, that observes the area that I have reported about in the last year and a half, said you have to consider a volcanic risk as well, and I'll get to that. So he says, in the past we tried to build new cities, basically in other areas, but then in the end people returned in a magnificent number like that to Campi Flegrei. The reality is that this is a theme of all cities. There is too much pressure on urban areas where people concentrate, where it's highly densely populated, and therefore this is a part of a broader reasoning of rebalancing between the coastal area and inland areas to ensure that there is less demographic pressure. Obviously, this reduces the risk and helps to better manage the complexity of densely populated areas. What? So he's basically saying, well, you know, in this area, on top of Campi Flegrei, you cannot ensure that people can live safely. Yes, you have a lot of work to do if you want to reduce the risk from larger earthquakes, because already a magnitude 5 earthquake, according to the civil defense and many scientists, will devastate the area, Western Naples, Pozzuoli, Bagnoli, with hundreds of thousands of people that will be lost. Buildings will collapse, and it has already happened in the 80s in Naples. And engineers are warning that you have to do something. Yeah, maybe this will take years, decades, then people can live safer from their buildings collapsing on top of them. But if there's a volcanic eruption, and even if it's a small one, it's going to be absolutely devastating. And he says we cannot move tens of thousands of people. So in his opinion, let the people live there because it's too densely populated in other areas. He basically is saying two things. We won't be able to move them, and we cannot move them. So whatever, is this what he is saying? Well, before we go any further, I'd like to tell you what we've heard from the INGV. So the Vesuvius Observatory from the INGV basically said, I'll give you the short headline and then we get into this. There is magma that emits the gas that is responsible for these strong and increased accelerated gas emissions. And the problem is this magma can rise again like it did in the past. Really? You have to understand what they're saying. They're always very, very careful. So the director of the Vesuvius Observatory, Mauro De Vito, he has clarified the issue in his opinion. His own scientists say something else. They warn that it's way more dangerous than the officials are saying. So he says the Brady seismic crisis that has been intensifying in the last period in the Campi Flegrei since 2005 has generated earthquakes and tremors. And he still wanted to deny in this last interview the risk of a possible imminent eruption. But define imminent. Have they ever defined imminent? We keep hearing from them. There is no risk for an imminent eruption. Imminent eruption means, for example, in Iceland, if they say the eruption is imminent, can happen in a few days, latest in a few weeks. So yeah, maybe it's not imminent that it's happening in the next few days, but maybe a month or maybe in a year or two. Define there is no sign of a possible imminent eruption. What does he mean with imminent? Right now? So he says, I want to express solidarity with all the citizens who are experiencing this significant discomfort that we at the Vesuvius Observatory are also experiencing. We have never moved away from our position, neither day nor night. Yeah, but he had problems to get to the office when the magnitude 4.6 earthquake happened because the major evacuation route, the Via Tangenziale, was closed for construction. So had there been a more devastating earthquake and people needed to be evacuated, boof, whole evacuation plan goes out of the window because it's based on that road. And we've just seen it. Maybe you have seen my video about the recent earthquake in Myanmar that has done so much damage in Bangkok. Watch my videos. Look at the pictures of these damaged roads, the pavement cracked, cracks opening, height differences. So do you think you can evacuate in the red zone 500,000 to 700,000 people at Campi Flegrei? And Greater Naples area, 6 million people after an earthquake that probably comes before a volcanic eruption. We have seen this in Iceland. Earthquake was maybe 3. Roads have been cracked. Cracks have opened. So this is crazy. So he says, we are in there day and night. Well, yeah, if you have access, right? We are in a caldera that since 2005 has been showing a Brady seismic dynamic with crustal deformation that then becomes soil deformation. There is a strong degassing of the soil that is very evident in the Solfatara Peschiarelli area where there's all these fumaroles, the most of them. We are also at work in the underwater part of the volcano because there's fumaroles as well, with a network that is unique in the world. Should that give us a feeling of safety that it's unique in the world? You cannot guarantee safety. His own scientists have said that. They basically said, well, the officials are always saying, we closely monitor that. But what does that guarantee you? You closely monitor it until it erupts. He says, the bottom of this caldera is affected by the uplift of the ground that is deforming the crust. Not only deforming, it's weakening the crust, the caprock layer that keeps the lid on. But he didn't say that. He only says it deforms the crust, and then the crust fractures and generates more or less large earthquakes. Yeah, but by fracturing, it makes it easier for magma to creep to the surface. So he says, this uplift of the ground is strongly connected with seismicity. Yes, because the rocks are breaking. If it's lifting up, the rocks are breaking and crumbling, and that's generating earthquakes. So he says the faster the ground rises, the more earthquakes we observe. Yes. He says there are periods of like comma, of stasis in seismicity, but if the deformation of the ground continues, the earthquakes will also manifest themselves, as happened in the last swarm from February 15th. That was this massive, intense swarm. And then he says, there is a magma deep down that releases gas and transfers heat to the surface, heats the rocks, swells them, and this determines the deformation of the highest part of the rock. And he says, the gases are magmatic, but the magma is not that deep down. Scientists have found out that the magma chamber, there is a magma chamber way more shallow than they thought, at only 3.9 kilometers in depth. That's not far. But he says the gases are magmatic. They derive from the degassing of a deep magma. Not so deep, I would say. And he says this is a clear element for us at a certain depth. There is a magma that emits gases. Yep. He says the prevalent one is carbon dioxide. Only from that one, fumarole, in the Solfatara Pescarelli, 5 tons of carbon dioxide are emitted per day, which is a huge value. That's what he says, huge value. And he says, again, now he says, oh, this is concerning. But then this process is continuously monitored by the observatory, right? So don't worry. We monitor it until it blows, and then oopsie, right? The problem is, and that's what he says, the problem is that this magma can rise towards the surface. There he says it. He says it. A magma that rises deforms the rocks at the point where it rises. Exactly. And where is that point where it's rising the most? Pozzuoli. Underneath Pozzuoli, the Solfatara area. And then he says, in the Campi Flegrei area in the last 15,000 years, 75 explosive eruptions have occurred. That is not a small number, guys. And he says in the future there may be more because it is an active volcano. But then he says again, but right now there's no sign that there's an imminent eruption about to happen. And that is true. But there's signs that it's creeping, dangerously creeping towards the next eruption. That might not be that far in the future. His own scientists are warning about that. So he also says that the earthquake swarms have intensified in the last period, but today, again, he says, there's no evidence of an imminent eruption. It is not a parameter that tells us that the eruption is about to happen, but it's the complex of parameters. And he closes that, his statement with that. The complex of parameters. What does he mean? This crazy earthquake swarm, this 4.6 magnitude earthquake, that was the highest ever recorded there. These accelerated gas emissions that are crazy, the land rise, that they found a magma chamber at a shallow depth, that the caprock layer that keeps the lid on has only a third of its strength left compared to the 80s when magma was getting out of a magma chamber, intruding, but wasn't able to break the caprock layer. So what is he talking about, right? I have a feeling, I mean, yeah, they're doing something, but they know. I think behind closed doors, they're saying, there's no way we can save these people. So what's the point of creating too much panic, hurting the tourism, hurting the property values, scaring the people? So let's calm this a little bit. Let's talk about the seismic crisis, making homes safer, and stuff like that. But it's unrealistic that we can move even Pozzuoli, the red area. We're talking about Pozzuoli 80,000, but the red zone 500,000, maybe 700,000. Where would these people go? I know this is difficult. This is really a shitty situation. I have to say it like this. And it's not solved by shifting blames from politicians to the INGV. I don't know, guys, what is the solution? It's very, very difficult because these people that live there, many of them, they're not rich. They can't just say, I abandon my home, I buy something else somewhere else. Nope, this was their home for generations, and they have so many family ties. And some of my viewers who live there, they said, we either leave with everyone or we don't. So this is difficult. I understand it. It's just still, it's scary to hear that, to maybe face that reality. I mean, look at Japan. They have these big earthquakes. They have also volcanoes, tsunamis. Should they desert their island? Well, they're preparing, right? But they don't have this kind of super volcano that Campi Flegrei is. That is the problem. This is kind of similar as if people started occupying Yellowstone and starting to build big cities there. This is basically what happened at Campi Flegrei because nobody was aware. They only saw Vesuvius, the big one that destroyed Pompeii, and they were like, yeah, but Campi Flegrei, nice hillside, fertile ground, yeah, extremely fertile from past volcanic ashes. Only if you look at the aerial picture, you can really see that something's wrong there. What happened there? Like bombs falling from the sky, creating these craters, asteroids, what is it? So that's my latest update, guys. I hope you liked it. I have also just released an update about Santorini. There's a new study. There's a higher tsunami risk than we thought, and not only related to this seismic crisis that we just had. So check it out, guys. And if you're new here, please subscribe. And if you want to support the channel, become a supporting monthly channel member. You just have to click the join button, and you're also getting something for it in return. I'm releasing videos, behind the scenes stuff. And right now, if you want to support the channel with my buymeacoffee.com/silky site, this really, really helps so much, guys. Thanks so much for doing that. Go to my On the Pulse with Silky channel start page. There you find all the links, but also under this video, you find all the links. So thank you, guys. Stay safe. I see you very soon. Bye-bye.